All right, welcome to the Southern U podcast. Today we are not live, but we are here in the Killing Cabin in Fayette, Alabama, stomping grounds of Mr. Matt Brock here.
That's a fact.
And we, of course, joined with local AL Deer celebrity, Matt. And
Keep bringing it up.
The one and only.
Yes, and, of course, Mr. Jerremy Ferguson. Is here with us too. So,
what are you famous for, Jeremy?
Apparently just nothing but killing flies.
Okay.
It was pretty impressive. I mean,
I enjoyed it.
And not only are we here in the Killing Cabin, we're going to do some hunting tomorrow. Would have gotten to do some today, but I could not make it down here in time because the universe is against me.
You didn't miss much. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to get down here because you hear the legends of the deer that roam around these parts. And I'm looking around at this wall right here, and there's plenty on the wall to get excited
Some
about.
strong evidence.
Yeah, for sure. And, so we've got a great show. Before we jump into the topic of discussion, I'm just going to give everybody a quick update. I know on the last episode we talked about some of you guys heading out west, heading to Kansas, and having lots of fun out there. So I think the people want to know probably how that went. So Matt, you want to kick it off and we'll see how your adventure went?
Yeah, I can say there was much fun had. In 8 days of hunting, I didn't see a deer over 115 inches.
Oh man, you could have done that here.
I know. I mean,
Exactly.
I exceeded that here before going to Kansas.
So all you folks wanting to go to Kansas, stay at home.
Yeah, just stay at home. It's not worth it.
Quit applying for tags.
Yeah. No, I had a great hunt. I started out hunting walk-in areas and had a little challenge the first couple of days getting away from people. But I located some properties that were pretty good. A lot of deer sign, saw deer. Not the kind of activity I was expecting to see. It really seemed like the older bucks were
Awesome.
that's sweet.
What is that?
That's the dryer.
That's the dryer.
We're drying bed sheets, by the way.
Yeah.
So we can all get in bed after
Sorry,
this
guys.
is over.
You can tell it's the first hunt of the year.
I don't know if you guys will be able to hear that or not, but anyway, it's always something new.
Yeah, yeah. You never know. So
And just wait. I'm sorry.
what?
It's coming again.
Oh,
Oh
great.
yeah, it double buzzes, don't
It'll
it?
double buzz in a minute.
Yeah. So you
Killing
know,
Cabin.
I was there hunting at what I feel like is probably the best time to catch a big deer on his feet. I started hunting on the 14th of November and hunted until the 21st, 22nd. I can't remember now, but either way, didn't see any big deer on their feet. Even at night driving around to and from, going to my hunting locations, didn't see a lot of activity from the roads. Had similar reports from other people that I was in communication with while up there. I saw 2 bucks chasing the same doe one afternoon. I went in and hung a stand to hunt the following morning and didn't really have anywhere to hunt that afternoon, so I just hunted from the ground and had several deer within range and 2 small 8s chasing a doe. They locked up, and it was a fight to the death. I mean, one of them had blood in his eyes. It was a sight to behold. I didn't have my camera because I was from the ground, and I'm just going to try to kill a deer. I'm not filming anything right now, but
Sorry, guys.
yeah, sorry. I didn't get to see that. I wish you could, but it was about as exciting as a buck fight can get. And I did meet a farmer one afternoon, and he allowed me to hunt his private place. And
Score.
yes, and I was like, yes, thank you, Lord. I only got 2.5 days of hunting left, but a lot can happen in 5 minutes in Kansas.
Oh yeah.
So I went and scouted the place, and the only mature deer I saw was from the truck window with him. And we saw, I'm going to say, mid-140s to 150 class deer run across the field. And he went right into the little finger of woods that I was there to hunt. So, I mean, this guy had a lot of ag and just one big draw of timber. And it was surrounded by great habitat, a lot of cover. So I was like, man, this is going to be great, because if these deer are leaving this scope of cover to go to this scope of cover and I'm in the middle, I'm golden. And it worked out great because I had 6 bucks. I think I had 6 bucks between 100 and 115 inches. You know, they were all 2-year-olds. Every one of them was two.
Mm.
One of them may have been a 1-year-old.
Mm.
But they were all, you know, just nice young deer. And everyone in bow range, does in bow range. And I finally ended up killing a doe, the biggest doe I've ever seen in my life. The last few minutes of the last hunt, I was covered up in does and fawns, and I was like, I'm feeling a tag. You know, those Midwest deer taste so much better than our southern deer. It's not even comparable. It's not like eating the same animal.
Well, they don't eat briars.
No,
like, you know,
exactly.
They eat
So,
like good
And there's
stuff.
a lot more of it when you process it.
Exactly. So I shot this doe, and I was thinking, you know, I shot a 160-pound doe. No, I didn't. She was freaking huge. She had to be over 200. I've walked up on several 200-pound deer here in Alabama. She was larger than I'm gonna say nearly every buck I've killed here. She may have gone 220.
Gosh.
I wish I could have weighed her. She was big.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big old.
She was enormous, just huge. Just swallowed my bow. I put my bow up beside her, and I was just like, "That's the biggest deer I've ever killed," and it don't have antlers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so that was my trip. I killed a bobcat up there too. Their season for non-residents opened up November the 15th for bobcat. You can buy a bobcat permit.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I was able to call one in on the 17th. So I'm like a bobcat magnet. I see them everywhere
Yes,
I
he
go.
is.
That's funny. I've laid eyes on one bobcat from the stand. You know, from the wood. Like in my lifetime, I've seen one.
I'll see 9 or 10, 12 a season.
That's crazy,
Mhm.
man. Just neck of the woods, I guess.
I remember one year I was out for Christmas. I think it was in college, and between me and Dad in 1 week of hunting out here, we saw 7
Wow.
in 1 week.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. Well, sounds like you had, you know, all things considered, you know,
Hey,
roller coaster of emotion.
It was a
and all-
productive trip.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, I got to release a couple arrows and had a good time, so I'm not complaining about it at all.
No doubt. No doubt. Jeremy, you were also in Kansas, but not too terribly far away from him, I guess, but hunting.
What, 2 hours? Maybe
Yeah,
2.5 hours?
about 2 hours.
But hunting different property. You know.
Yeah, total different story for me.
He gets
Same-
to hunt the nice, you know,
Yeah,
private
now,
farm.
you know, full disclosure, I was hunting with an outfitter. Outfitter's a friend of mine. I guide for him, and I generally put in for a tag and buy a hunt from him every year because, you know, my time is very limited to get in the woods, and I know that property or those properties produce really well, and so I've been successful the last 2 years.
He's done quite
up
well.
there.
Quite well.
Yeah, but I saw totally the opposite end of the spectrum. I was covered up in deer activity, saw plenty of bucks.
He was texting me
Oh,
like
yeah.
every morning, like,
It
"Oh, I
was-
just saw the 7th buck of the morning," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Just shut up, just do your thing." Just-
In two sets on the same farm, I saw 11 different bucks, 11 different individuals in a morning and afternoon set, and of course then my dumb self decides to get up and not hunt there anymore. Went different set on the same farm, and actually was hunting a Boone and Crockett type deer that we know is there and pictures of and seen in years past, got a little history with, and nobody saw the deer that I'm aware of. I know I didn't lay eyes on him, but the deer I ended up killing, I saw the second morning that I was hunting, and immediately when I laid eyes on him, I switched from wanting to kill that Boone and Crockett to this deer, which is just, he's a more mature deer, gnarly deer. Y'all know I'm a sucker for big old gnarly deer.
He's a beast.
Yeah, and here in the South, I'm after the big 5, 6s, and 7s. Out there, you know, just anything that's unique really, really gets me going, you know, after a whitetail. And first laid eyes on him, I was like, I'm killing that deer. However I've got to do it, I'm killing that deer. And he was very aggressive. I saw a ton of aggressive activity at every hunt. You know, rattled in 6 or 7 different deer.
That's awesome.
2s and 3s and 4-year-olds.
I rattled in a spike.
and all the respect in the world to you guys that are doing the self-filming. That's tough. I mean, I've got footage, and we'll put some stuff together, but it's not great. Me trying to get deer dead and also trying to get it in the frame, and it's I struggled and didn't make it happen. Although I killed the deer, and you can hear the arrow hit. Spoiler, it's not on film. We can show you the results, though.
Hey, look, man, I'm trying to tell both of you guys, like, it's hard. And shout out to Parker McDonald with Southern Collective. A couple years ago, he put out a film for like a contest. It was like a film festival thing, and it was called Self-Filming Sucks.
It's awful.
And it's hard,
It
man.
is.
I didn't realize what we were getting into.
No, I was like,
it's difficult.
yeah, having especially with a bow in your hand. I mean, not to say
Tough.
that it's easy with a gun or anything like that. Still, but the kind
All
of
the
saying
factors.
is,
It's just another layer of
Oh,
gear
it's-
and stuff that you have to tinker
Yes.
with, and there's that fiddle factor, and
yep,
it's
for
just
sure.
The fiddle factor is terrible.
it's awful.
for sure. I mean,
I've got a lot of respect for these folks that self-film all their hunts
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's stressful.
The footage of one deer that I've got is phenomenal. And had he been old enough, it would have made great TV. But he was a 3-year-old, 130-inch 10 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, he read the script, did everything right. And I'm like, golly, why couldn't any other buck do that? And so, I didn't have to call the deer in that I ended up killing. But I heard him coming from a pretty good ways, just grunting, just constantly coming from behind me. And had just filmed another buck come by, a young buck chasing a doe, probably 10 minutes or so earlier. And he come, same trail. So I was quite certain he was going to take same trail, on her track. And he did, and rest is history. But,
heck yeah, man.
beautiful deer. The landowner there's got some history with the deer. I'm not hunting too terribly far from their house. Out in the cattle pasture, and they knew of that deer and started seeing him at least 4 years ago, and he's got a pretty recognizable, real tight and narrow rack and tall, and so we felt fairly confident it's probably a 6-year-old deer, maybe older, but they had some history, at least 4, maybe 5 years with him, so it was a blast. Terrible shot. Just to be honest about it, I made a terrible shot, gut shot the deer. Knew that I gut shot the deer, so we'll tag some guys here and some of this stuff. I got a guy with a dog there that was local, great little beagle pup, came in and struggled a little bit to get on track, but once he did, went right to him, and I feel confident that we would have found the deer. Just tracking, even though there was very little blood, very little sign, guts plugged the hole up. Obviously it was a lethal shot. Deer went, I think, on track 538 yards, but got in the creek bottom, stayed on our farm the whole time, and of course we found him in the creek.
And so you immediately backed out and waited till the next day?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I didn't even go to the arrow after the shot.
You knew what happened.
I knew that I knew where I hit him.
Sure.
And
He described it perfectly because I was talking to him in a text message, and he said, I hit him 4 inches behind the ribs. And I was like, 4 inches behind the ribs? You probably shot him in the kidney. That's like way back here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually did clip some kidney.
Really?
Yeah.
So, for folks that make bad shots, don't push it. I mean, these guys with dogs are great. And really experienced blood trackers, as far as, people goes, I feel confident we could have found the deer, but I wasn't willing to chance it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that a dog was going to find the deer. Felt confident we probably could, but I wasn't going to take that chance.
Sure.
If you're ever in doubt, back out.
Yeah,
Give the deer some time.
Most of those deer are recoverable. You just got to give them enough time.
We gave that deer 18 hours before we took up the track, and we let it rain.
Mm-hmm.
We had a big front coming through. It started raining for 2 days, and we took the track with the dog after it had been raining for 3 or 4 hours. And I think that's a little bit why the dog struggled there, even though I know moisture helps. I think it probably overwhelmed him a little bit because there's so many deer in that area that I was hunting. And during the rut, you know, the deer leaving that excited pheromone around. So it's tough on dogs. But once he picked it up, man, he went right to him.
That's cool, man. Well, yeah, that's pretty good. There's still, I know that kind of the rest of the country is not winding down. I mean, there's still a lot of season left, but kind of what people get excited about with the rut's kind of starting to wind down for most of the country. Here, it's not really started yet. Hasn't even really picked up at all from other parts of the state. I'm not really seeing very many reports of people talking about deer chasing, unless you're getting closer to Georgia. Kind of that line.
We've got a couple areas.
Yeah.
The
Bankhead
area is pretty early, and then
they killed some fine deer too.
They do.
They have killed some really nice deer this year.
In that area around the Chattahoochee, that influence over there, like you're talking about Georgia, we got some small pockets that they've done their thing and kind of winding down now, but it's a minute part of.
I've just started seeing active scrapes here in the last few days.
Gotcha.
And it's December the 1st.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this has been several years ago, but my dad and I got in a lease that was split properties, and the whole draw of doing that was all the guys that were in the lease too. They had been there for previous years and had history there. And one piece of property is literally like 6 miles down the road, but it's closer to the Georgia line. And this was in Randolph County. And they said, look, the week of Thanksgiving, I don't care what you have going on. You go stuff your face with turkey, kiss your grandma, do whatever you're going to do, and get down here because there's deer running everywhere the week of Thanksgiving. After that, it's a ghost town. Then you go hunt the other property that's more traditional Alabama rut, late December, early January type stuff. And we were like, okay, it can't be that much difference. And it was. It was crazy.
It certainly can be.
It was kind of wild. But anyways, so that being said, we're going to jump into the topic of discussion today, and it's one I'm pretty excited about because it's one of those topics that I've always sort of had questions about or wondered about, and kind of would like to ask people who were supposed to know, and not to put you guys on the spot, but yeah, y'all supposed to know this stuff, so I'm pretty excited.
And got no idea what he's about to ask.
No,
us.
I really don't.
Here we go.
We haven't seen the script.
No, you haven't. If you guys don't know this, I try my best to not tee these guys up. Like, we have a tentative schedule just to kind of give us a rough idea of what we do on each episode. But it's not written in stone, and it's changed already a lot from what we had. And so I tried to make this as authentic and genuine as we can make it. And today we're going to be talking about talking deer density in the South. So
fun.
And I guess kind of I've got 4 questions here. If we work our way through all 4 of them, that's awesome. If we don't, I just kind of want to take a little bit of a deep dive on this specific topic because, number one, over the last several years, Alabama has, and the South in general, but specifically with the state of Alabama, deer numbers are high and have been high, like as far as deer density. And I think as recently, we were talking about a couple episodes ago, as recently as like 2019 or 20, something like that, Alabama was like number 2 in the country in terms of deer population. Only behind, I think, Texas maybe. Or
Texas.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that, to me, it's pretty interesting to think, especially when you go somewhere and sit 4, 5, 6 days and not see a deer. It's like, man, where are they? If you know what I mean. But if there's
welcome
that many,
to mine and your part.
Yeah, for real. We do live in the vacuum, not otherwise known as Marshall County, Alabama. But with that, kind of this first question here is how does someone, a landowner, someone who's got a long-term lease, what's step number 1 in determining your deer density on a particular piece of property? Like, how is there a set formula for that? Is there a step 1, step 2, step 3, or is there multiple ways of accomplishing the same goal? Like, what's the most accurate way of doing that?
Who first?
I told y'all I didn't tee them up.
Yeah, no. And I think different locations can be a little different.
It's very site specific.
Yeah, most of the time, folks are going to rely on a camera survey type process, and that's going to be putting out, a game camera every 100 to 200 acres, depending on, really how much money you got or how much you're willing to pay somebody, because that camera equipment is expensive and it's time consuming to go through all those pictures. And once you complete that, you're only going to be, what do you think, Matt, 85%?
Yeah, all the research is, you're not going to get 100%.
Right. You're never going to know 100%. And one of the crazy things I always ask is, once you know that number, what do you really know?
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah.
Which is,
I know how many deer I have. Great.
Now, what do I do with that?
Right.
But we won't go down that trail, first. There's other technology coming along that doesn't work well for us with a closed canopy coniferous forest here in a big part of our state. But
it's a big word, coniferous.
Yes, pine trees, guys. Pine
Conifers.
trees. But in other parts of the country, it's doable to do thermal surveys.
Okay, gotcha.
Especially in colder climates where it's open hardwood canopy and they can fly over and survey, and you can actually determine what's a deer versus what's a coyote versus other species fairly well. I mean, it's never 100%, but you can do fairly well.
Sounds expensive.
That one is tremendously
expensive.
expensive. It's coming down because technology's getting better. That used to be reserved for all the research done around military installations, because they had the equipment, and
now that equipment's available to the general public.
Yeah.
So
spotlight surveys were very popular in the past. We still did a few of those when we were working for state government.
yes, we did every single fall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be that guy that's sticking up for people who are not biologists. When you say spotlight survey, what you mean?
You just have a predetermined route that you run each fall, and you drive the route, shine spotlights.
So it's at night.
Yeah, you're just tallying the total number of deer. If you can get a sex on them, great. But you just eyeballs. Okay. You're just looking for eyeballs.
And it all comes down to math. All of it does. But you've got to determine how far your spotlights are, and you've got to determine what area you're covered on that route, and then you use your formulas to figure out how many deer you saw across that area, and then extrapolate it into the rest of the coverage area.
Gotcha.
And it can vary so much even on the same property.
Yeah,
from one night to the next, you may record 150 deer, and the next night you may record 25.
It can be accurate, but by nature it's fairly inaccurate because it's inconsistent. And inconsistencies in that data is pretty normal on a lot of your surveys. I don't know of too many folks still doing pellet count surveys. I know it's been used for a long, long time, but that's predetermined route. You're laying out these transects through a piece of property, and you're taking a certain number of feet off of each side, and you're counting every pile of deer poop that you can find.
Okay.
And playing the math again to determine the number of deer in that area.
Okay.
And you can get a lot more technical with things like browse surveys and things like that. And I don't do scientific browse surveys. I just look at the vegetation that's there, and I see what plant species deer are browsing on. And that doesn't give you a population estimate. It just gives you, relative to the habitat quality I have, are the deer eating things that they typically wouldn't, or are they just sticking to their highly preferred plant choices?
Yeah, and that's kind of, we're not going to get there just yet. I don't want y'all to keep talking, but that we're going to lead into that too.
And I use it all collectively.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just rely on a camera survey or just rely on a spotlight survey or just rely on a browse survey.
That's right.
I look at all the data that I have and then look at the hunter's objectives. And if they want a lot of deer, that's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, if they're managing for mature deer and a tighter breeding window and we might tweak some of the harvest and habitat management and that kind of thing. But
well, and that's like, I'm glad you said that, because what I'm specifically talking about or asking you guys about here is strictly just the number of deer. We're not talking about quality of whatever. Kind of another story about me and my dad, but we got in a lease, extreme North Alabama in Jackson County, pristine property. Like as far as North Alabama is concerned.
Well, Jackson County is top 5 counties in the state.
And this specifically was not your typical Jackson County. I don't want to get off in the weeds too bad here, but this was about 625 acres, and it was every bit of it was huntable, like flat as a pancake, which is very rare for that area of the
Jackson
world.
County, yeah.
This spot looked Midwestern, and what I mean is 625 acres, and it had pines, it had thick bedding, it had big hardwoods, kind of sapling, like young hardwood stuff, and then it also had it all added up together in the very center of this property, cornfields that all together added up would have been close to 100 acres. I mean, it was as good
what
as
everybody looks for.
Yes,
good mosaic.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
but the landowner was very, very, even though he leased the property, this is another story for another time, but he had some rules, and he was like, I don't want you to shoot this, don't want you to shoot that, blah, blah, blah. And it was like he was trying to get the best of both worlds. I want a lot of deer. Every time I go in the woods, I want to see multiple deer, but I also want to have a bunch of big deer too. And we were trying to explain to him, like, you really got to pick one or the other. Like, you can't, you're not going to be able to have a ton of deer and have giant deer too. Like, you're going to have to say, I want a lot of deer, or I want, because like you said, we're going to get off into food and, what the property can handle and all that kind of stuff in a little bit. But it was just frustrating because you couldn't explain to him, like, well, I don't want you killing a bunch of stuff, wiping all my deer herd out, but I still want big deer. And like, okay, so it was just kind of frustrating. But I said all that to say we're talking numbers, not necessarily quality, management for age, structure, and that sort of stuff. So, anything you want to add or take away from, I guess, that question? Or is there any other methods that somebody could use to determine?
That's going to be the general methods that you see.
I mean, mainly camera surveys.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, if somebody wants me to give them a population estimate, I'm relying on a camera survey.
Okay, gotcha.
And we still do, a few a year. And
with you guys, working for the state previously, like, is that kind of how the state determines that too? Like, when someone says, "Hey, Alabama's number 2 in deer density," like, how does that number come? How do they come to that conclusion? Is that like, or is that going to be like?
Have you ever seen the game of darts?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, they relied. They would do the spotlight survey counts every year on the same properties.
Okay.
So they would just basically use, generalized numbers to extrapolate into.
That's right. And there's really, they have to do that because people ask them for those numbers in publications, but there's no need in knowing it. Why does Alabama need to know there's 1.8 million deer?
Right. How does that help you manage it? What are you gaining
nothing
from that?
To know, except for somebody's going to ask you that question, so you need to have an answer, and you need to be able to somehow back up that answer. Well, this is how we derived those numbers. And really, it's incredibly inaccurate to even to throw out population numbers at a county level. It's impossible.
Because look, in this county, okay.
Well,
I'm just giving an example. Here, where we're at, has a pretty high deer population. You go 20 miles east of here, and I've got clients over there that I recommend they kill a deer per 400 to 500 acres.
Cool. Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you said, it changes Marshall County, I mean, you have the state park
Yes.
that's loaded down.
My farm is 5.1 miles from the state park. And best I remember when we surveyed the park, it was way over 100 deer per square mile.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I think
It's
I think it
ridiculous.
was between 150 and 2. Our deer project leader Chris Cook would probably remember better, but I think it was somewhere between 150 200 deer per square mile.
And even at those numbers, those deer were incredibly healthy, were they not?
Well, eventually they were. Prior to the tornado, they were in terrible health.
Right.
Oh, gotcha.
The tornadoes that came through really laid down all that big closed canopy timber, created tremendous amount of browse, and those deer just absolutely, that population boomed.
Mm-hmm.
But my farm, both of our farms, one of them is 5.1, 5.2 miles from the state park lodge. The other one's about 7. The one that's the closest, I've never seen a deer
Ain't
on,
got no deer.
ever.
That's
The
so
one that's
crazy.
7 miles, if you killed a deer per 4 or 500, you killed the deer you have.
Yeah.
That's it. You killed the adult deer.
Mm-hmm.
Like I run cameras on my place and a couple of neighbors there, which is going to total 200 or 300 acres, 260 I think. We have 1 doe, 2 fawns that we have consistently
On all those properties.
on all those properties. And there's a buck that runs through every now and then. Obviously, she's got to be bred.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have any that's there consistently. And like I said, the other one never seen a deer, and it's closer to the state park.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fairly sure the reason for that is Short Creek that runs through there is a pretty sheer rock wall, so it's a pretty good boundary for a whitetail right there where we're at. But you go a few miles north or down to the state park, and it's not as steep, and deer can cross. But
It's interesting because, like you said, we've talked about it a lot, but it is the vacuum.
It is.
compared to the rest of the state.
And we got a tremendous human population too, so
That's true.
That's part of it.
No doubt. And that kind of leads you talking about deer per square mile. This is a question I've had for a long time. I'm glad that got 2 guys in here to ask it. But how many? Like we've talked about how to establish your deer density, a couple different ways of doing that. But how do you determine that you have an overpopulation or an underpopulation? Like how do you determine, like I know a lot of times you'll hear someone say, "Oh man, you should get in this lease over here with us, man. It's covered up in deer. There's deer running everywhere over there." And then you'll hear us talk about Marshall County and go, "Man, there's not a deer in this whole place."
Right.
So, how do you determine over, under?
Boy, that's the question that keeps on giving.
Yep.
I think
Sure
we could
is.
talk for hours and hours on that, because it goes back to what I said earlier. Once you know how many deer you got,
Now what?
Yeah.
what are you
gonna do with it?
what do you really know? And because on forums and different conversations, they're like, "Well, we got too many deer." Okay, how do you know? Well, we did a camera survey and we've got 80 deer a square mile. Okay, do you know anything about your habitat? No. Do y'all plant food plots? Yeah. Y'all run feeders? Oh yeah, we feed them year round. I'm like, so how do you know you've got too many deer? How do you know your deer are unhealthy? We just got too many. I'm like, sounds
All right.
logical.
Because I see a lot of them.
Yeah. Or a lot of times the excuse is, well, we've got mature bucks, but they're not reaching what we feel their potential should be. We're only growing 110-inch deer. Well, how you know that's not their potential? So it just
don't care how much food it eats.
One answer leads to another question. So it's, Matt,
To me, knowing the overall population is less important than knowing your age structure, sex ratios, fawn recruitment, and the other parameters that you gain from those camera surveys. Those are more important to me, and also finding out what the landowner, the hunter's objectives are. because me personally, I don't want a very high deer density. And the reason why is because it's annoying to spook deer
All the
going
time.
to my stand and leaving from my stand every time I'm hunting.
That's true.
Some people don't care about that. I do, because I'm after specific deer, and I don't want to spook everything in the woods to kill that deer. So I'm willing to harvest a little more for the benefits of taking mature deer. Other people, they're fine with 100 deer per square mile, and they want to see deer every time they hunt. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either one of them. But you just tweak your management.
Yeah, but let me tell you,
I'm that guy.
if you are that guy, and you take a property and you build it up to a really high deer density, it is tough to go the other way.
Yes.
It's much easier to build a property from a low deer density up than it is to take a high deer density place and knock it down.
And here's the thing. Yeah, if you want a high deer density, one of the things you have to have on the landscape, and you have to have it repeatedly, is early successional habitat. You've got to have openings. You've got to have clear cuts. You've got to have, if you're not actively managing it, then the only way you're going to get that is through storm damage, wind damage, like we were talking about, or like Jeremy mentioned with the tornado over at Gunnersville. That laid down so much beneficial browse for deer. And that's, if you compare two properties, that we hunt right here, say this property, and then there's another one 4 or 5 miles down the road. The deer herds are two totally different deer herds as far as what they're expressing. And it's not a genetic thing.
No.
The deer are exposed. The deer here have much higher quality food available, and we don't feed. We don't feed anything here.
Just incredible native browse.
Yeah, I put corn out to run camera surveys and to find out what we have. But as far as supplemental feed, we don't feed anything. And we're producing really good deer.
I was going to say, that is counterculture to what anybody's going to say now.
Look,
it's like, man, you got to feed, you got to feed.
Oh, well, look, what's the name of my business? Habitat First. You give me a property and let me work on your habitat, and I can blow your mind.
Not feed first.
And not feed. Yeah, it's not feed first. And I'm not against supplemental feeding. I'm just saying there's a better way.
That's right.
And, supplemental feeding is just that. It is a supplement to what you're already providing.
That's a piece of the puzzle that once you're doing the other things right, add that in.
Right.
But if you're not doing the other things right, try pissing in the wind.
If you've got poor quality habitat and you're pouring supplemental feed to wild, free-ranging deer that have choices not to go to that feeder, then the results you will see are negligible.
Very, very.
But if you've got really good high-quality habitat and your deer in superb condition, and then you throw that supplemental feed on top of that, you can have some noticeable gains.
Gotcha. So I guess that would be the response to, if you ain't baiting, you're waiting. Like, not necessarily, I guess.
Yeah.
And Matt talked about some of the other metrics that you get from the camera surveys on properties that we manage. Even if we don't have any harvest history, we're going to immediately start taking harvest history, and then we're going to take body condition metrics, especially a couple of the certain ones. We want our clients to be doing kidney fat index, so taking the kidneys out, weighing that fat, and that gives us a metric of how that deer's doing. But you can't do that drawn out through the season because it changes.
Right.
So you've really got to focus in on shooting quite a few deer at one time.
Taking the data.
Take that data down, and then process that data and keep it. Make sure you don't lose it, because that happens a lot. Do it again, same time next year, and you can see those changes in body conditions if you're doing things right. I promise you, if you've got a closed canopy forest that you're hunting and you do some clear cutting or thinning and get that native browse going, and you're tracking that, you're going to see those body conditions increase. You're going to see that increase in recruitment rates and, possibly even your birth rates. Average, most of our deer here in Alabama are having twins anyway. But you'll see in some really, really prime areas, you'll see quite a few does throwing triplets and have the ability to raise them.
Yeah, we've seen that quite often here in a good wet summer. We'll have triplets.
And see, that's the difference here than what I go back to Marshall County. But Marshall County is in the Cumberland Plateau, close canopy hardwoods primarily. That habitat just cannot grow that many deer that quickly. I think when we were still working with the state, most of the deer, where we are in south, the areas that are not in the Cumberland, were right at the recruitment rate was right at 2, and then but up where we are, man, it was just barely over 1. So you're every time a deer is killed, you're taking one out, but you're only getting one. Here, you take one out, but you're getting 2.
Yeah, reproductive rates around here are pretty solid.
They're good.
Yeah,
they're just not that way, and that's what hurt North Alabama, where we had a lot of complaints when I was at the state of we're not seeing the deer we used to in Jackson County, Madison County, the little bitty tiny corner of Marshall County that's got deer.
right.
Everybody started complaining, but the whole state was being managed the same way. You were able to kill 2 does a day and a buck a day, up to 3 for several years now. But we had to back off of that.
Yeah.
A big portion of North Alabama.
Yeah, the Tennessee Valley and
yeah, biologists did a real good job 25, 30 years ago when the deer population was really on the climb and at its height of saying you cannot kill too many does. Well, in places you absolutely can. Now there are certain places that's an accurate statement, but in the Cumberland Plateau in North Alabama, that is not an accurate statement.
Yeah, a blanket statement.
Yeah,
right.
And we as biologists have done a very poor job of going back and saying, hey, what we preach to you and what you're living by is wrong, and here's why. If we, as an industry, have done better at that, I think folks would understand and really, I guess, listen more, because they'll have biologists out and they'll tell them that, and they're like, well, that's not what we've been told our whole life. You're wrong. Well, no, the science hasn't changed. We just have better information than we used to have.
And another factor that we are having to take into consideration now that we didn't back in the 70s and 80s, which I would have been a wee little lad in the 80s, but coyote predation. That was a non-factor then.
That's right.
And now it is in a lot of areas.
And vehicle collisions everything, all of the mortality factors for a whitetail are going up. I mean, even us as hunters are much more efficient killers than we've ever been, because we've got game camera pictures coming to our cell phones. We've got archery equipment that we can confidently shoot 50, 60 yards. We've got crossbows that people can fairly confidently shoot 80 to 100 yards. Rifle equipment and optics is better than it's ever been. We are very efficient killers.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and I mean, something you said earlier, hey, I'm just not seeing deer I used to see or whatever. And I mean, I'm going to throw this out there and just you guys push back if I'm wrong, but like, just because you're not seeing those deer doesn't mean that they're not there.
That's right.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
I mean, there's, again, I can tell you other scenarios of leases that I've been in, but where people kind of get overkill on the rules. This is what we're going to harvest. This is what we're not going to harvest.
Yep.
And all this kind of crazy rules and restrictions. And I'm telling you, I'm not about that stuff at all. I can't stand it.
We are two opposing views.
Well, I mean, my thing is just, I love it. It's just it's purely for my enjoyment. Yep. I love to take that bow with me from opening day to the last day of the season.
And everybody, shoot anything you want to,
and shoot whatever. I mean, not every deer I see, but if I want to shoot it, then I will shoot it.
And but you said it before, that carrying that every day is a management philosophy.
That is
because it's going to limit the number of deer you can kill
absolutely.
Drastically.
And it's clear. It's purely just because I like it. It's not because of
even we use space age side on there.
Man, I love that, and love it. But you know what I mean. I just, it's just for enjoyment. That's fine. and that's why if I get in some place that has crazy restrictions and rules and stuff, I'm like, dude, I've got a bow in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to do enough damage to a property with that than something else. But yeah, just that's what I was getting at is people would go, man, we're just not seeing deer. And it's like, well, you know, I'm 100 yards off of that food plot that you like to sit on, and I see plenty.
Well, let me tell you, I'll give you a case. So I'll use our place for an example. I've got to stand 0.4 of a mile that direction. I've got a nice, big, beautiful food plot. I've got bait out there. I run a camera, seeing what's there, what's using the area. I can sit on that food plot during daylight hours and see 2 or 3 deer. And this is an unpressured area. Keep that in mind. We don't hunt much.
Mm-hmm.
So on an unpressured food plot, getting all kind of usage, but it's all at night.
Mm-hmm.
I can back off that food plot and see 25 deer.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
I'm not going to see them from the food plot.
Well, they're not 5 miles away.
Right.
Before
They're
dark.
literally just outside the food
Right.
plot, just out of view in thicker cover, meandering around the outskirts of this food plot all day long. I can see deer there, you know, all throughout the day. And I remember I've rolled up on some properties. One was on the Jackson-Madison County line. And, you know, they were like, we know we've got deer. We just don't ever see deer. And I got up there and I got to looking and, you know, of course the food plots are eaten down. There's deer trails through the woods, droppings everywhere, rubs and scrapes. And I'm like, yeah, y'all don't have a deer population problem. Let's start talking about how you're hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out,
They got a pressure problem.
they got a pressure problem. They just didn't think that the things that matter to deer mattered. And you can't
Matter
put that,
big time.
they matter huge, big time, bigly.
I get tickled, just tickled inside when folks talk about, well, you can't kill mature buck over corn.
Oh,
Bull crap. I do it once or twice a year.
you can do it. You can absolutely do it.
Now we can go over there and get a couple of them that I've shot that way. Just, you know,
You
it's
can't
the way
be,
I'm hunting over there because I don't have anything else to hunt.
Yeah, but even hunting over corn, you can't be stupid.
No.
You have to play the wind. You have to hunt it on the right day.
That's it. But, you know, the guys they've got their cell cam out. So, hey, we're not going in there all the time. We're just going in there when we know the deer's there. Mm-hmm. You know what time he's going to be there, and they slip in, but they pay no mind to the wind or any other thing. You know, how does the deer access and where do you think he's coming from? Because
a lot of times
I can promise you, you're walking by them, and that's why you're not seeing them.
And a lot of times those deer, you're looking at a snapshot of what's actually taking place in that camera lens.
A tiny little snapshot.
And a lot of times when you think, oh, this deer's entering from the west, no, he's not. He's coming from the east, and he's circling that whole thing at 60 to 80 yards before he comes in. And, yeah, he's coming from the west side of the frame, but he's actually coming from this direction.
Yeah, for sure.
And that happens a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Matt says all about the acorns, baby.
All
It is.
about the
All about
acorns,
it. All
baby.
about the
I'll
pressure,
tell you,
baby.
and look, while we're talking about pressure and how deer respond and how they behave, when I'm hunting natural food sources, acorns, deer are at such ease. It's just like they're doing what deer do. They're not on alert.
That's a
they
good
have
point.
no care in the world. What is every deer doing that approaches a corn
They
pile?
on pins and needles.
They're just like this.
Yeah.
They're freaked out.
They're freaked out the whole time.
Yeah.
And drawing on when you have 7 to 10 sets of eyeballs out there at 25 yards, try drawing a bow back.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and tell you, these deer, you know, we've had, what's baiting been legal, 4 years now?
Something like that.
Sounds
yeah.
like-
Something
sounds
about, yeah.
And then we had several years of 100 yards and out of the
Right.
site.
Let me tell you something. If you don't think deer have not figured out they get shot standing in front of those feeders, you have lost your mind.
Yep.
I've got feeders out, and you can go pour a pile of corn 10 yards in the woods away from that spin cast feeder, and you'll get bucks on that. And you will never see them in front of those spin cast feeders.
I've got bucks that I'll never get on a feeder. Never. They're not showing up on a feeder.
Yeah. You just have to pour it out.
Yeah.
If you pour it on the ground, they're coming to it. But they will not show up to a feeder.
That's funny. There's only, before we move on, there's one other thing I just kind of had a thought when you were talking about the kidney fat index stuff. You said that you want to harvest like a lot of deer at one specific time.
Yep.
And like look at that fat, see if they, how healthy they are. Is there a specific time, or let me back up. Do you do that when you feel like the deer are at their healthiest point of the year, or do you do that or does it matter, I guess?
It doesn't matter as long as it's consistent.
Okay. Like, are you trying to do this in October when everything's green and lush and stuff, or are you waiting until like the end of the rut?
Well, here's the thing. If you do it early in the season, keep in mind that does are lactating. They're nursing.
That's a stressor.
That's a stressor. But now they can still be in real good condition that time of year. But the main thing is, if you're going to pull kidney fat index this year in October, don't pull it in January next year and compare the results.
It's a total different window.
Right. Yeah. You're going to get completely different results.
Well, less food and rut and all that kind of stuff.
I generally, like if I were doing it here where we're at, our rut is December 15th to Christmas, maybe tailing into the first week of January. With our season going, unfortunately, into February, I'm going to do it right at the end of January so that we're not shooting deer, prior to the rut, because we're trying to get several deer on the ground. We're doing it with rifles.
Right.
It's easy to go out. And a great thing, for us in Alabama is if you enroll your property in the deer management program, there are some different stipulations that go along with the regulations that allow us to shoot more deer than you're legally allotted if you're not in that program per day. So we can go out, Matt and I could say, hey, man, it's the week we need to do it. He and I could go shoot 5 or 6 deer in a day, together.
Or alone.
Or alone.
We can shoot 10.
Matt's done it all together
I have
before.
shot 5 in one afternoon.
Yeah. But
don't write us tickets, guys.
No, I mean we were in DMAP. It's perfectly
legal.
But
if you're in DMAP, you can. There are some great things that go along with DMAP.
Yeah, we have a down throwdown every year.
Yeah. So it's great to do that all at one time, and we have a big time with it, and we shoot a few deer with a rifle and then put them up. Unless it's raining, mine may be in the background. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so I'm shooting a boomstick tomorrow. Sorry, a real quiet boomstick because it's got a suppressor. I don't like loud noises.
I don't either.
Less loud. That's awesome. One question I'm gonna throw at you here, and this is really just, I guess, more of an opinion than anything else. How much do you feel like the deer density statements that are put out by the state or whatever, is that like influenced by like insurance companies and things like that, where they're like, hey, we want you killing lots of deer because we don't want as many collisions, on the road or those sort of – I know it's kind of a weird question, I guess.
I think people are going to disagree, but I think it has zero impact.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all the conspiracy theories and all. Honestly, I think most state agencies are using the best information they have available to throw their estimates out there. Now, I don't think that it's influenced by that at all.
Regulations that's passed by legislature that happens outside of game and fish agencies, lobbying plays a role in that much more than a decision that's made by game and fish. I mean, we heard it, how stupid we were, and that our director and our commissioner were idiots for making decisions that they made. We made the best decisions we felt possible. Now, sometimes we didn't agree with them, and we voiced that opinion, and, many times we lost out. But most of the time, they generally try to listen. But what is difficult that I have seen in Alabama that always kind of bothered me as compared to some other states is we do have a very different deer herd across the state. And you could probably break our state up into 7 or 8 different zones probably, and be safe and manage them very accurately for the parameters that we have found through decades of research. And right now, is there 4 zones or 5 now?
A, B, C, D, E. There's an E.
Okay.
Isn't there an E?
I think so. So we're getting there, but it has taken a long time, and I think part of it, I never was in enforcement. Matt was, but I did get to sit in some of the high-level meetings with enforcement, and some of the decisions came down to we're going to have a really tough time enforcing this, even though this may be right. We can't enforce it. So you as biologists figure out how we can move forward and figure out how to enforce this accurately and not make lawbreakers out of people that's going to attempt to follow the law.
Right.
And that's where some of the zone changes came in that missed or added a lot of portions of counties because they were looking for very easily definable areas, big highways, big bodies of water, things of that nature. Using county lines doesn't
And we used the
work.
best, boundaries that we could. And some people, they'd look at the map, why didn't y'all include this little area? Well, it's not easy to define that area.
Right. It goes 1 mile over, this major tributary that's an easy defining line. We can't draw an arbitrary line and enforce it. So we're going to make lawbreakers on both sides. So that was very difficult. And I don't think people understand that. But I was also in a meeting where it was very blatant that folks further up than our level, and I'm going to say even, above, maybe even above the director level at that point in time, did not think that our general population could determine, the boundaries without them being these big, massive, easily identifiable roads and tributaries. And I give our population a little more credit. I think they can. We could use some smaller areas or smaller tributaries, highways, roads, things like that. I mean, for crying out loud, I think, was it Arkansas? They got 16 or 17 different zones. And by the way, they have a commissioner per zone.
Oh, wow.
Imagine all the politics that gets involved in their game and fish. If folks think it's bad in Alabama, which I never saw a lot of politics involved in what we did. Yes, there was politics involved. I didn't like it when it did get involved. But it wasn't every day like people think.
Gotcha. I was just curious, different thought, but we've already kind of talked about, I've got here, what factors can contribute to deer density. We've talked about food and browse, hunting pressure, that sort of thing. Is there anything you want to add to that, or
this thing right here?
Yeah, pulling the trigger.
that depending on what quality rifle you have, that 1/16 of an inch or that half inch right there, it makes all the difference in the world. In most cases, if you've got a tremendous piece of property, one that's managed to the nines, if you do that too much, you can still ruin it.
Yeah. I tell people every time you pull the trigger, it's a management decision. You may think each individual deer doesn't matter, but they add up.
Yeah.
So every time you pull the trigger, it's a management
and
decision.
particular does matter, man. I mean, if you can determine, if you're trying, especially if you're trying to build a herd, if you can determine these does that are successfully raising twins versus these that, man, I only see her with one fawn every year, and I don't see her raising it successfully all the time, man, shoot her. Keep that baby mama out there that's successful.
Right.
Now, if you're trying to knock a herd back, do the opposite.
Right.
And going out to Texas, hunting with our buddy Cody through the years, they knew. And now I don't believe you could know every deer on a 5,000 acre high fence, but by gosh, they knew most of them.
They did.
And we'd go out there and just go on deer killing sprees because landowners didn't want to and their guests didn't want to, so they needed some Alabama rednecks to come out there and kill stuff.
Gladly.
Yeah. So when we'd get in the stand, we'd sit there.
My kind of party.
Yeah, we'd sit there and twiddle our thumbs in these giant shooting houses with bows. Most of the time, we shot a few with a rifle. Most of the time, it was bows. And we'd sit there and, there's 30, 40 deer out there, and there's a 200-inch deer that you could drop an arrow on, and there'd be, just bucks filing in, and all of a sudden, Cody say, "Get your bow, shoot that one." And you're like, okay, so shoot that one. You just keep sitting there, everything leaves, and then it comes back.
Right back.
Yep. And he's like, "You see that doe?" Kill her. See that doe? Kill her. What about that one? No, kill her.
Kill that one right there.
Kill that one.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And he's like, okay, we're not killing anything else here. That's what we needed to do.
Yeah.
They lived it every day. They had their finger on the pulse.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You would have to do. You'd have to live it.
I mean, look, they were sitting on stands. I mean, the staff were sitting on stands videoing deer every day. Every day. Even if they have no clients, no hunts, no hunters, they're on stand and observing deer.
I can confidently say that I've never been on a piece of property in the South that's managed like those in Texas. I mean, there's properties that are very well managed, but nothing like some of those operations out there.
Sure. Gotcha. Well, and I guess kind of the last question that I have here, and we'll kind of wrap it up with this, is if you're a landowner and you happen to be listening to the conversation we've been having, this is probably where I feel like that's where the conversation would need to go, is what can a landowner do to improve their deer population? As far as is it strictly a habitat thing?
Habitat first, man.
Yeah, he's got the right name.
Yeah. Is it that? Is it less hunting pressure? Is it a mix of all? Is it?
Yes.
It's a mix of everything. You have to picture deer management like a giant puzzle, and you've got to put all the pieces in place if you want to be really successful. Mm-hmm. If you just leave one out here and one out there, it's going to take a place that could be premier just down to above average.
Yeah, I mean, you can do all the habitat work. You can have a pristine property with excellent habitat and be a poor hunter and not be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really about managing the hunter's expectations with the habitat that they have, the resources and budget that they have, because that's not the same. And I don't try to get in people's business, but that's one of the first things we discuss on a site visit.
Got to be.
I need to know how much money you're willing to spend because that's going to determine what I recommend.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, and Taylor, you and I, we've talked about this place. Need to get Matt to go over there with us. But we're going to go film on a project that we've been working on with my company the last 2 years total. I sold the property to them 2.5 years ago. It's 535 acres. And they said, man, we just want a premier hunting place. Okay. And I said, how are you guys going to hunt? And they said, well, we're not big hunters, so we're going to need advice. Great. Okay. And from there, they asked, what's it going to cost? And I gave them a rough number, which was a very large number. And they said, okay, we'll scream uncle if you spend too much. And we have really we've had 6-figure invoices.
Yeah.
Just on individual projects out there. But when we're done, it's a finished place. If they hunt it right, it'll serve them for years, and they'll one day when they sell it or their kids sell it, they're going to make a premium on one of the best properties in the state. Not because I did it, but because as long as they follow the plan, they're going to do what 90% of people don't do, is stick with the plan.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, and then I guess, I said that was the last question. Kind of follow up here for improving your habitat. This is something that's heavily debated and talked about a lot, and I just kind of hear my dad in my head, talking about this like stuff he said before. But what is a reasonable amount of land, or I guess, or neighbors or whatever, because the argument is, oh gosh, man, you don't even need to worry about trying to improve anything or manage your deer herd or whatever, because you've only got X amount of land and all your neighbors kill everything that walks. So why even try? Why even care? Is that a valid argument, or
in
is
places?
Or is like,
I'll put it to you this way: you can have 40 acres with excellent neighbors, and that's all you need. Or you can have 4,000 acres that's surrounded by subdivisions with people shooting them out of their windows over corn piles, because everybody can do that now legally.
Mm-hmm.
And you will literally drive yourself insane trying to produce mature deer.
The number of high fences going up in the state increases every year because we have so many folks. And look, I'm not a big landowner. We own a total of right at 200 acres. So we're a large landowner by Alabama standards, but we're a small landowner
By deer management
yeah,
standards.
by what we do, we're a small landowner. And we've got one neighbor that, he ruins it for everybody. And, I don't mind telling him that. I've told him that plenty of times. But he makes it so that the one farm that we've got that's got deer, we're doing great to, have the picture of the one doe and a couple of fawns because of one neighbor. Our property here, we've got one neighbor. Now, it's fairly significant amount of acres. It's got a club. Man, with the efficiency of how we can kill deer now with all the tools that we have, they can kill every single 2- and 3-year-old out there that we pass. And when's the last time we killed a deer here? A mature buck, 5-year-old.
Oh, 5?
Yeah, the one Caleb killed.
That's years ago.
Yeah.
Well, the last 3 years we haven't even hunted here. On that section because it's just not. I'll put it to you this way: we've got one section across a county road. We've got great neighbors, and I think we entered the season with 17 or 19 mature bucks, and I'm calling mature buck. I mean, like 4+.
4+, yeah.
Yeah. On the other side of the road, we had 2.
Mm-hmm.
2, and there's more acreage over here
by a significant amount.
And it's just, I'm not mad at the folks.
No,
it's just we're not on the same page management wise.
They're well within their legal rights.
Right. Yeah. But now, a couple of years ago, I kept up with it. There were, I think they killed 85% of our 3-year-old age class that year. And I mean, you just can't.
All right. Well, let me ask you this though, so how does that change what you do here on the
it
property?
It hasn't.
It hasn't yet, but at some point it would.
Yeah, we've discussed it today. I mean, we've got 2 or 3 4-year-old bucks over there right now, and
we'd love to kill.
We're not even going
to 5.
Right, we're trying to get them to 5, but we're not going to even hunt this year. We didn't hunt last year or the year before or the year before that. This will be the 4th season in a row
that we just pay the lease. Some of it's owned, but most of it's leased. We plant the food plots. We keep cameras up. We keep property maintained.
And don't even hunt.
And don't hunt it because of one club, one group of hunters.
Okay. And that story's repeated over and over. Yep. I've got clients that are wanting to produce mature deer that have hundreds of acres. Some of them a couple thousand acres. And I've got 2 that have approached me and said we literally just want to sell everything in Alabama and just give up because what we want to do and what we're able to do are 2 totally different things.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And unfortunately, and I know it happens in other states, but I've hunted in all the southeastern states a significant amount because I lived there. Alabama is by far the worst when it comes to neighbors not getting along over hunting.
Right. Mm-hmm. It can be awful.
And I'm going to use the club bordering us as an example. If they would get on board with us, they would be, it's going to take them 3 or 4 years, and that's what they don't want to go through is the 3 or 4 years of not being able to kill that many deer. But they would be able to kill just as many bucks. They're just going to be mature bucks.
They're going to be more mature bucks.
They're going to be better. They're going to see more deer. Nothing about the number is going to change. Mm-mm. Except for going through that 3 to 4 years of growing pains of having to get those deer in those older age classes. And in the Northeast and other parts of the country, you've got dozens and dozens and dozens of landowners that come together, meet, cook out. Man, they have a big time. and they've got a cooperative, and a lot of them own less than 40 acres.
Right. But they're in big cooperatives.
They're in big cooperatives, and
we've kind of accomplished that here. We've got some cooperating
we do.
landowners
We've
around
got
here.
several cooperating landowners, but it's that one, and I see it from the real estate side of things, and it can be difficult to, people ask, well, this looks like a premier hunting place. Why is it being sold? Mm-hmm. And if I know it's because of the neighbor, I'm legally I've got to tell them, well, it looks great, but these guys are going to kill every deer that walks across the line. They got shooting houses on the line, and the current landowner is just tired of fighting that fight. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you fix this, and I don't guess you do, because I think you made the comment today. Every guy that's got a rifle and a quarter acre in his backyard can go put a corn pile in it and shoot deer, and can shoot a doe a day and up to $3 off of that one spot. And if you've got a 1,000-acre landowner, think about how many neighbors he's got most of the time. Mm-hmm. And they're all doing that. And unfortunately, what you're going to see as hunters gravitate to the edges of a property they know is being managed, and shooting those more mature bucks, or middle-aged bucks, because they're not growing them. They don't typically see them on the other side of the property. But they do over here. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go sit over there, and I'm going to kill that 3-year-old because it's the best deer I've seen in 2 years, when in reality there's 4- and 5-year-olds walking around. If he didn't kill that 3-year-old, that'd be another 4- or 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. And they have a legitimate chance at a really nice deer in a year or two.
We've discussed this in a previous podcast episode. None of it to me is worth ruining relationships.
No.
I still have a great relationship with our neighbors that shoot younger deer. I mean, I'm not going to press the issue. It's not worth it.
Sure.
We'd love for them to get on board.
Right. We just have different management objectives, and that's okay. But we do treat this side of the property differently, because there's just not the kind of deer we're after. Mm-hmm. They're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They could be, but it is frustrating. I oftentimes hear people say, "Well, what is it to you what your neighbor's killing?" Well, it is a lot to me when I'm putting in resources for something I want to do on my place and can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is what it is. People get real frustrated when they want to have something and they're putting their resources and money into it and they can't have it. Mm-hmm. Especially if it's their own property.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's like the age-old question: where do your rights stop, and where do mine start? It's kind of that point. My rights end at the end of my fist, and yours start at your nose. So, you got to figure out how to work with these folks.
You got to work with people. I mean, it's you got
to.
But
imagine, and that's what I tell folks when I've talked about cooperatives, and we tried to get them going at the state in certain areas. You just sit down and talk with these people. Imagine if y'all all worked toward the same goal. Mm-hmm. What could be done? And most of the time, I find it's generally ego-driven.
You usually have a couple, and I'm doing what I want. I don't care what they're doing. I'm going to do what I want. It's my place. And that's fine. I mean, but when you have a group of people that can put their minds together and work toward one common goal, it just benefits everybody. And I'm not saying everybody's got to think like me. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, I honestly think diversity is a good thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't view it the same. No, I mean, and we're sitting in the same room right here having this conversation.
Well, I got tickled about your guy that you hunted with in Kansas. He and his neighbor couldn't get along.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently.
So I said, so how did this guy had hundreds of acres, like just farms scattered all over. And he had one in the walk-in hunting program. And I'm like, how did that happen? He goes, just a little, thing between me and my neighbor. We had a little argument over hunting and everything. He said, so I just told him I'd put it in walk-in area and then everybody could hunt it. And it really ticked off his neighbor
Oh,
because
yeah.
they were having a discussion on, what
Yeah.
what's going to be shot and who's going to hunt where and all this kind of stuff. He's like, well, heck,
Sure.
man, I'll just let everybody hunt here.
Yeah.
So
Golly,
and,
man.
and see that here we don't have that, but that's where the high fence mentality comes in.
right,
I've got multiple clients now that have asked me about it, and I used to be not dead set against it, but I'm like, why? That introduces a lot of other stress that you've got to endure. It's just tremendously expensive. I think that stuff's I think around $35,000 a mile.
if
now.
you include the prep work, dirt work,
Yeah.
dozer, excavation, everything, you're looking at about $45,000 a mile.
45 now. See, so that, I mean, just a tremendous expense. But now I'm actually leaning more towards, I know the resources that you guys are putting into this place. I know for a fact these neighbors, you're never going to own that piece of property. You're never going to change their mind. They're going to take advantage of that line year in, year out. Fence it.
Yeah.
And I've seen a few guys fence just one side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
They're gonna cut that neighbor off that doesn't want to work with them, and everybody else. It don't make a ton of sense, especially on a small place.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got a big place that's got some other pretty good boundaries, fence that joker down one side and in that spat on that side, and work with other folks. We've got a co-worker in common, used to be, or past, we all worked the state together, that asked me about that while we were hunting in Kansas. And I feel very confident he's going to put up a fence down one side of a fairly small tract.
Yeah.
Because he just, one neighbor, and the neighbor's just honest with him. He's like, man, I'm killing the first 3-year-old that walks across here, and by the way, I'm going to do it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So more power to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well.
I've kind of come around to that thought.
Yeah.
And if we could work together more as a community, as hunters and managers, you wouldn't see that as much.
And that's why, like I said, having a good relationship, we can disagree.
Sure.
I mean, and that's
Absolutely.
one thing I think is wrong with society today is this cancel culture. When, me and you have a disagreement, I'm not having anything to do with you anymore. We're just going to be enemies. That's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Because who do you argue more with? Your family.
Absolutely.
If you did that to your own family, then
if you're like
we'd all
me,
be
you argue
single.
with yourself.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
These
it's
voices.
just, we can have these discussions without walking away from it thinking I can't, have anything to do with that person anymore. That's just ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, and I just don't know why the cooperative thing just doesn't work here.
It's ego driven. A lot of it is ego driven. It really Alabama, and for good reason. We're a private property
Oh yeah,
rights state,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. I'm all for that.
absolutely.
But a lot of the issues that arise are more to do with ego than property rights.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's crazy. Well, not as crazy as it sounds. A lot of it is, man, this wealthy guy moved in here and bought all this acres that I used to could hunt, or
Mm-hmm.
grew up hunting, and man, he's not one of us. So we're not gonna deal with him
Mm-hmm.
when he's doing more for your hunting.
Right. He would benefit through his management.
Yeah.
You just don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
He's piling resources into managing this place. It's going to benefit you.
Yep.
And most of the time it does,
Right.
And a tremendous amount generally.
yeah.
Well, that's cool, man. I think this is probably
This
one of
was
the
a
more.
long one.
This is it was, but this is just for me personally. I can't speak for anybody else, but got to ask some questions that I've wanted to ask for a long time. So I think it's probably one of the better episodes that we've had so far. And
I bet it'll be controversial.
yeah,
Yeah.
We'll probably get some.
Oh, but yeah.
controversy
By
out
the
of this
way,
one.
listen. Not that you guys are bashful by any means, but if you're listening to this or you watch it or see any of the reels or shorts or any of that kind of stuff that we throw out there, and you think think it's stupid, bring it on, man. We don't care.
Well,
We'll
see,
talk about
Taylor,
it.
I didn't know what I was getting into. Taylor likes to bait people in. He'll take things out of context and he'll put a little clip on there or something that I say, and I'm like, Taylor, you kind of misrepresented. Well, that's what I want to do. I want them to click on it to find out what the answer is.
Yeah, we got to get those clicks.
Yeah. So if you see something that you don't like, let us know. See something you do like, let us know. It's either way.
Yeah,
Not gonna hurt anybody's feelings.
I would love to get some of the listeners and folks involved and see how their thoughts are on some of these topics, especially one like this one.
I've had some local folks reach out, and some of them would not mind being a little guest, kind of sit in and be a part of the podcast. And they could introduce some thoughts on things that maybe we wouldn't come up with.
Because Matt and I, we do just our backgrounds. We think a lot alike, and we hunt somewhat alike. I'm much more giving. I'll let Taylor shoot a spike. Matt would hang him.
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
Spikes for you.
Listen, I'm here. Look, I'm just gonna make sure to shoot the first 2-year-old I see.
Look, I'd rather you shoot a spike than a 2-year-old. So
yeah. Hey, we've got less resources in him.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you can come over there to my place and shoot that 3-year-old spike.
Man, don't tempt me with a good time.
Please shoot that.
That's awesome, man. Thank you guys so much for listening in. Like we said, please let us know what we're doing right, what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah, and share.
Share. Yeah, subscribe. Obviously, we're on the big three. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we're kind of on TikTok. It's a lot to manage, but
because he's got 2 guys that know absolutely zero about.
No, I can barely turn my camera on. I mean, I'm no good.
We're getting there. We're learning, but we can operate the shooting instruments fairly well.
There you go. Yeah, they do.
Just not with the camera involved.
Yeah.
If I had a full-time cameraman, it could be bad.
Oh, yeah.
It could be dangerous.
I think you need to do that. Invest in Habitat First needs a full-time camera guy.
I tell you what, we need to get Taylor here on the doe rodeo and.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Just
you need to be a part of Doe Down Throwdown.
That sounds like my kind of party.
It's a good one.
Yep, it's a good cooking. Heavy drinking with water and milk.
Right here.
Water and milk.
This is the only drinking I do.
I
might have a little
we
lactose toxicity.
We are definitely going to do the milk challenge. I think I can do it.
You can't do it.
I think I can do it.
Oh, look, I'm not bragging.
You're skinny. I'm
but
fat.
Just listen, I'm not bragging. I don't know many people that can put milk down like me, and I can't do it. I've tried. I mean, with lots of cash on the table.
Yeah. Tell you what, guys.
Cash is a motivator.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't do it.
If you want to see Jerremy attempt the gallon challenge, then you just whatever, share this thing.
And it's got to be whole milk.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Hey, I tell you what. How many subscribers? We'll do that at like. What, 500? Let's do a benchmark.
No, we've already got 500.
No, well, Instagram we're over 1,000, and Facebook I don't know where we're at on that, but
hey, we got.
If we can get to 10,000, I'll try it again.
Hey, we'll pick a benchmark and we'll.
I'll do the
I
didn't just say
challenge.
that on. I did not. Don't air that part.
Sorry,
guys.
Part. You heard it first.
Yep. We'll do it together.
There you go.
I don't want to do that again.
There you go.
That was miserable. I never did throw up, but it was bad.
Bad enough.
I felt like I needed to for hours.
And then we can we need to do a deer skinning challenge.
Oh.
I'm fairly certain Matt would pull away with that one pretty handily.
What, fastest?
Get it done. Oh, you're done.
I figured I would be.
But if we really want to do that, we need to get one of the Bettendorf boys.
Well, hey,
3 to 3.5 minutes, they can have one skinned and quartered.
Let's
way.
do it.
Oh, 100%. I've watched it. I've seen it.
We're going to do that.
We're going to start having some fun.
Yeah.
Some sure enough fun.
No doubt. Well, thanks, guys. We certainly appreciate it, and look for this one. Obviously, this will come out. Let's see. I guess that would be on. What would that be?
It'll be next Thursday, right?
Yeah, it's going to be the 7th.
We'll try to do another one from the killing cabin.
Yeah.
Next time, maybe. Sure enough, big time.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys, so much. We'll see you on the next one.
Good night.